Have you ever looked at a really innovative company and just wondered, how do they do that? Is it just luck, some random flash of genius? Well, turns out it's not. There's actually a system to it, a powerful framework for understanding and, more importantly, building creativity. It's called the 4 Ps of innovation, and we're going to dive right in. So here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start with why creativity is basically the new currency in business. Then, we'll introduce the core framework, the 4 Ps, and break down each one: the person, the process, the product, and the all-important context it all happens in. And then, of course, we'll tie it all together. All right, first things first, we have to change how we think about creativity. This isn't some fluffy, soft skill. It's a hard asset, a critical one. In today's world, it might just be the most important capital you have. And this idea of creative capital is so important. It completely reframes the conversation. We're not just talking about fun, feel-good brainstorming sessions here. No, this is about a real, measurable asset, one that hits the bottom line by turning your team's raw ideas into a competitive advantage that can leave everyone else in the dust.
Okay, so if it's capital, how do we grow it? Well, it's not about finding one magic bullet. It's about understanding the entire system of creativity. And that is exactly where this 4 Ps framework comes into play.
So here it is, the whole shebang, the 4 Ps. You've got the person, that's the individual with the ideas; the process, that's how they come up with those ideas; the product, the new useful thing that comes out at the end; and the context, the environment where all this magic happens. Let's dig into each one.
Let's kick things off with the first P, the person. What is it really that makes someone creative? It's not just something you're born with, it's actually a mix of a few key ingredients.
Yeah, it turns out creativity isn't just about raw talent. It really stands on 3 pillars. First, you need knowledge and expertise. You can't innovate in a field you know nothing about. Second, you need motivation, that grit to keep pushing when things get tough. And third, and this one's huge, you need affective skills. That's the emotional stuff, like being brave enough to take risks and okay with not having all the answers right away.
So on top of those pillars, creative problem solving needs a whole bunch of high-level thinking skills. You have to be able to diagnose a problem, see a vision for the future, think strategically. But for right now, let's zoom in on that last one, creative thinking, because that one has its own set of skills inside it. First up is fluency. Think of this as your idea generation engine. It's all about quantity over quality, at least at first. The basic idea here is that to get one great idea, you often have to come up with 100 bad ones. Your first thought is almost never your best. Okay, let's try this out for real. You've got 1 minute. Think about a single piece of aluminum foil. How many uses can you come up with? And go beyond just wrapping your leftovers. Could you use it to sharpen scissors? Or maybe fold it into a funnel? What about a fishing lure? Or even a makeshift antenna? The more you can rattle off, the higher your fluency is. It's that simple. All right. Next we have flexibility. This is all about mental gymnastics. It's being able to pivot, to look at the same old problem from a totally new angle, especially when the obvious path just isn't working. This is how you escape that "we've always done it this way" trap. Here's another quick one for you. You're stuck in a desert with just a flashlight. Okay, so it makes light. Duh. What else? Could you use it as a tiny hammer? A signaling mirror to reflect the sun? Maybe a waterproof container for something small? Or even a little shovel? That right there is flexibility. Seeing an object for what it could be, not just what it is. Then there's elaboration. This skill is all about taking a spark of an idea and building it into a real roaring fire. You add the details, the features, the layers that turn a simple concept into something solid and well thought out. So let's say your idea is a new toaster. Pretty boring, right? Now let's elaborate. What if it has a glass side so you can see your toast browning? What if it connects to an app so you get the perfect shade every single time? What if it has extra wide slots for bagels and a little mechanism that butters the toast for you? See? Every one of those details is an act of elaboration. And finally, we get to the one everyone thinks of when they hear creativity: originality. This is it, the big one. The ability to dream up something genuinely new, something that makes people say, "Wow, I never would have thought of that." Okay, so we've got the person covered. Now let's look at the next 2 Ps in our framework, the process and the product. This is where we see how all those personal skills turn into something real. The process is all about the how. How do you actually innovate? What's amazing is that you can teach this stuff. When you train people in creative problem solving, it totally changes how they approach their work.
They learn to really define a problem before jumping to a solution. And, this is critical, they stop shooting down new ideas before they've even had a chance to breathe.
And when a creative person follows a solid process, you get a creative product. But hold on, when we say product, don't just think of a physical gadget. A product can be anything. It could be a better way to deliver a service, a smarter internal workflow, or a whole new business model that shakes up an entire industry.
Now here is the absolute key. For something to be truly creative, it has to pass a two-part test. First, it's got to have novelty. It has to be new, fresh, original. But, and this is just as important, it also has to have usefulness. It has to actually solve a problem or meet a need. A bicycle with square wheels is definitely novel, but it's not useful. A truly creative product nails both.
So we've got the person, the process, and the product, but none of it happens in a bubble. That brings us to our final, and maybe most important P, the context, the environment. Because the workplace can either be a greenhouse for great ideas or a freezer. And inside that environment, we've got to make a really important distinction between two things, culture and climate. See, culture is the deep-seated stuff, the company's core values, the real way things are done around here. But climate? That's the mood of the room, the day-to-day feeling. And here's the kicker. You can have a culture that says all the right things about innovation, but if the climate is full of fear of failure, intense pressure for immediate results, well, that great culture doesn't mean a thing. Creativity just withers. You've got to get both right.
And that brings us to the grand finale, putting it all together. Because none of these P's work on their own. They're all part of one big interconnected system.
Think about it. You could hire the most creative person on the planet, but if you stick them in a rigid, bureaucratic process or a toxic context, you'll get absolutely nothing. To really move the needle on innovation, you have to look at all four of these things at once. They all influence each other, creating this powerful loop that either drives creativity forward or grinds it to a halt.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Now that you have this framework, take a hard look at your own work or your own team. Where's your biggest opportunity? Do you need to develop the skills of the person? Do you need a better process? Do you need to get clearer on the product? Or is it the context that's holding you back? Figuring that out is your first step to unlocking some serious creative capital.